Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you to this function for the release of Public Affairs Index 2018. It's my privilege to welcome Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, Chairman, Public Affairs Center. There is no more distinguished scholar and thought leader who could be leading the center at this important juncture. PAC is coming of age. We just turned 24 last month. And we are making a significant strategic paradigm shift, going beyond the boundaries of social accountability to undertake action research centered around sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, a fundamental political relationship that characterizes modern societies is that between the community and the state. How well this relationship helps to advance the greater good of the greatest numbers is what public governance or good public governance is about. It is our privilege to present the third edition PAI 2018. The conceptual basis for a composite index that seeks to measure the quality of governance, indeed of social development, is challenging and by its very nature imprecise. Equally, our report for the past year also points to inspiring positive developments in several states where significant improvements in social development indicators have been recorded. Why some of them have done better than the others and how we might emulate them will be important for the states to understand, and PAC would be happy to work with the states to help.
Now, my main purpose in standing before you is to hint on some of the broad findings that we arrived at. About 2-3 years ago, Public Affairs Center brought out a book called the NorthSouth Divide. Dr. Paul was co-author. It is very clear now that the North-South divide is only widening. The gap is not closing, it is widening. The second important lesson we learned is that those states which are consistently investing in the social sector, health, education, women's empowerment, are surging ahead. And this investment cannot be for a year or 2 years or 5 years. It has been sustained over 50 years, 100 years, and then only will we get the progress. So those are the states, especially those in the south, some in the northeast, and notably 1 or 2 even in the north, have been investing consistently in the social sector and getting rewards for it. Overall, there is a dark mystery about the decline of women in the workforce. Many states had a very higher percentage of women in the workforce, but there is a decline. And we need to study why this is happening. As I told you, crimes against women are increasing. You will be shocked to know that there are 106 rapes every day in India, and 50% of them are against children. And finally, the never-ending tragedy of how we treat our children. We have a special chapter on the children of India, which will be presented to you very shortly.
I'm going to talk about the special feature that is part of PAI 2018 with a focus on children of India. We saw in the focus areas and themes that Dr. Matthew had put up that there were several themes related to children, women and children for example, social protection and support to human development. So obviously the overall PAI also takes note of some of the indicators required. However, then we must wonder why would we include a special chapter on children of India. And my goal for the next few minutes is to walk us through a scenario to end up with the question at the end, why wouldn't we want to include a chapter on children of India? So now I would again request Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan to do the honor of presenting the award to the winners.
With so much of discussion on PAI, child rights and other things, and also so many other things that is being talked about today, about the data, how to get it and everything. And then if you go outside, people are talking about data-driven activities, and people are talking about so-called in newspaper and other things also about big data, data science, data analytics, machine learning. There are many terms which are being told, and people think this is what is going to be the future. And probably it is also proven to be so, because there are many agencies where you find that they are using that for the large number of data, large volumes of data and everything. And that is what people started talking about big data and data analytics, data analytics. Now, there is no second opinion in saying that as we are progressing, we have been effortlessly collecting data. But I could see that the data that is collected in PI is not effortlessly, definitely. But then the other kind of data, like mobile data, social network data, and other things, are very easily, unknowingly, without even bothered about it, they're being collected. And people try to say that almost 90% of the data has already been collected in last 2 years of what we have collected earlier. And then, based on this data, there are a lot of commercial agencies, scientific agencies, they are trying to use those data to show that data-driven decision making is very useful.
I'm going to speak very briefly about Canada's support through the International Development Research Centre, IDRC, for the very important work that has been undertaken by the Public Affairs Centre. IDRC is a Canadian agency which is one of 5 international donors who support a project known as the Think Tank Initiative, or TTI. This was launched in 2008 and it's managed by the IDRC. The objective of the TTI is to strengthen the capacity of independent policy research institutions in the developing world. In addition to IDRC, other donors to the Think Tank Initiative are the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, DFID, the Development Agency of the UK, and NORAD. Given the special focus on Indian children in this year's report, I would also just like to say a few words about Canadian government support for women and children through IDRC. And I guess I just did what you talked about, how women and children are often lumped together. As many of you in the room will know, Canada does not have a bilateral development assistance program with India. This was really something that came about because of a policy decision by the Indian government. That said, we do still very much support, to the extent possible, initiatives in India. Some of these are through our International Development Agency, and they're through regional programs as opposed to a direct bilateral program.
I'm delighted to be here this evening for the launch of the Public Affairs Index 2018. It's a privilege for me to serve as a chairman of this an institution which is very unique, out of box in its thinking, and which has been chaired until recently by none other than the most distinguished legal mind of this country and also an erudite personality, Justice Venkatachalaya. And of course, my association, this is an institution which is born out of the vision of Dr. Samuel Paul. My association with Dr. Paul dates back to many years, in the times even when the present Chief Minister made a committee to look at the governance of Bangalore, and he put both of us in the same committee, and it was a great experience to work with him for a year on the various aspects of the governance. But it's one thing whether it has been fully implemented or not, but the fact remains that a lot of ideas came out of it, and one could see the working of the mind of Dr. Samuel Paul in those meetings that we had, a number of them over a year. So that's how I came in contact with him, and I vividly remember my association. And then when he made me a member of the PFC, then also for the first few months I had the privilege of meeting and talking to him, and especially sharing the vision that he had about this unique institution. I'm happy to see here today, along with the others, the Consul General of Canada, who is of course, Canada has been a very important partner for this country in terms of a multifaceted cooperation that we have been developing, and it is getting strengthening day by day. And then we have the Vice Chancellor. I think he heads the university. I was very pleasantly, recently, they also gave me a job there in terms of having some role. But the most important thing is the first among the rankings of the best of the young universities in the country, and the 7th in the overall ranking. And I think he is pushing it to the first, obviously. I think the focus of PAC's work is on the fundamental building blocks of the progressive, egalitarian and humane society. School education, primary health and sustainable livelihoods, of course, are the components that he has in mind. As a civil society organization, PAC works the last mile, partnering governments and working with the community to raise awareness, undertake informed advocacy and foster collective action to improve development outcomes.